Joining me today, I have Tim Bratton. He is originally from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, but he is here in Winnipeg this weekend. He's putting on a play, My Little Plastic Jesus. He is the writer and solo performer. Tim, thank you so much for taking the time.
So glad to be here. Thanks.
I would love to know. I mean, the title already has me intrigued. My Little Plastic Jesus. What is this play about?
So the play is a reflection specifically on evangelical pop culture. I grew up within Pentecostal church and within a very evangelical context, and there was a lot of that was wonderful and beautiful. But then, as I grew up, kind of into my 20s, I reflected on some of it and kind of had to take apart some of the understandings of God and Jesus that I had grown up with. And this is my doing that live on stage in front of other people. And I hope that it's helpful for other people who maybe are also reflecting on the forms of faith that they grew up with. Yeah.
Is it mostly a serious play? Is there any humor injected? Like, what does this look like?
Oh, there's lots of laughter. I I definitely start with that and invite people to laugh along at me and with me at some of the things that I grew up with. And then I definitely also get into the serious side of things and the importance of faith and the challenges of faith and what that has meant for me and perhaps what that means for other people. So I hope people laugh and cry at all the right moments. Yeah.
Hmm. What are some of like the main challenges with doing something like a one person play and it's so personal to you?
I mean, it's a challenge because it's all falls on me. uh, Everything from making sure I get to the venue on time and have everything set up to making sure that it's about an 80-minute play, and that's all me. But that's also part of the joy of it. It's important to let people know that I've been doing the show in mainly in people's living rooms, because I really love the intimacy of that setting, and I love the conversations then that I have about the show afterwards. So that's part of the uniqueness and the beauty of doing a little one-man show like this, and sharing it in really intimate settings. Yeah.
That sounds incredible. Um, why did you decide this is how I'm going to share my story through play?
You know, it's one of those things where I began writing this while I was still doing a graduate program, doing theological studies, and I I just realized that as I was looking for figuring out how to share this, I looked around at some of my friends who were musicians, and they were off. Some of them were starting to do like house shows, and so I saw my musician friends kind of sharing their music in intimate settings. I'm like, yeah, no, that's something I'd like to do with my theater, and I think this particular material that I was writing about really lent itself to being in that kind of setting. Yeah.
So you have some theater background as well?
Yeah, so I am a theater professional, full time, doing mainly acting, but I also have obviously been writing things, do some directing and sound design. I'm very blessed to do the work that I do in Saskatoon, where I work with a wide range of theater companies. And it's fun for me to do big shows, and I get to work with great theater companies like Persephone Theater, where I've recently done a show like Million Dollar Quartet, which is a great big fun musical. But then I really love being able to take this show back on the road, when me and Burnt Thicket Theater, which is our theater company, feel like it's time to take it back on the road and have this little show that we take, like I said, to people's living rooms. So yeah.
You've done a couple shows, I take it, in Saskatchewan. Now
Yeah.
you're in Winnipeg. I would love to know the shows you have done. What is generally the response from the audience?
You know, part of what I love is that the response is always a little bit different, depending on what people's experience with the material is. So sometimes I have responses from people who are a similar age to me. I was a kid who kind of grew up in the 80s and was a youth in the 90s. So if people have that experience, then and they came from a similar church background. They often have identify with a lot of the similar things. So I talk about DC talk and I talk about having flannel graph in Sunday school, and they identify with everything and they can laugh along. They get the references. So that's one kind of response I get, and people are in different places with that. I'm glad when people can celebrate the things I celebrate, and people are at different points of pulling apart. Maybe some of the aspects of, I don't know, I talk on about rapture theology and maybe the fear-based stuff that was connected to that they're still pulling apart in their lives. But on the other hand, I really love responses from people who don't have any connection to the culture that I grew up with. So it's been really fun, especially for me to share it with, say, some theater friends who have no religious background. But part of what I hope my play does is it's written in a way to give people access to my experience, to understand it, and to reflect on whatever it is that their background is. Because we all, at various points in our lives, have to process the kind of culture that we inherited from our communities and from our families and think through that. And so I love when people make those connections for themselves, even if their experience is very different. And it's been fun to have some of that response too. Yeah.
Before we get to the event details, I would love to know why the title "My Little Plastic Jesus."
Well, I started getting handed a lot of these little plastic Jesuses. So some of them show up in the show. I have a talking Jesus doll that I found, I think, at a Bible bookstore somewhere. I have a very good looking bobblehead Jesus, and it ended up just being the right metaphor for thinking through, in terms of kind of the way I'm approaching things, the ways we kind of limit our understanding of God and specifically Jesus to these very simplistic forms of kind of religious expression. And so, since I'm dealing with pop culture, kind of, again, I'm critiquing some of those things that came from that evangelical pop culture. I'm trying to push people beyond kind of the little plastic Jesus notion of understanding God towards a much bigger expression of kind of understanding the vastness of God and the complexity of who Jesus is. So I think that's kind of the metaphor I'm playing with there.
Fantastic. I always say, sometimes we try and stick him in a little box, and God does not fit in a little box.
Ew, God does not. That's precisely it. Yeah.
Wonderful. Tell us about these events that the public is invited to in Winnipeg this weekend.
Yes, so they are in people's living rooms, but everyone is welcome to come. And so I have a show which is November 1st, the Saturday in the evening at 7. And then my last show in Winnipeg is November 2nd, the Sunday on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And to get tickets or find out more information, you can go to mylittleplasticjesus.com and you can get your tickets right there.
Fantastic. Tim, I really appreciate you sharing your heart with us today. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
No, I really hope that people come out with still tickets available, and just so grateful for people coming out to see my show.
Well, thank you again. I wish you all the best and have a great time performing this weekend.
Thank you so much. Take care.